Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Before we get into the November the 8th AEW Dynamite review, let us talk about WrestleNomics saying that AEW is not profitable. This is a very interesting discussion to have because we've been talking about this for a lot lately. So let's get into what Brandon Thurston says. He begins, and I quote, "I'm confident AEW aren't profitable now. They need to make $200 million a year in media rights to get profitability. They'll get some increase. They could get triple what they're getting now. It's not unreasonable, but Tony's going to continue to run the company and do what he's doing, whether it's profitable or not." Now, in order to determine profitability, you also need to know what their revenues are and what their liabilities are. And I ain't seen no balance sheet when it comes to AEW. So where does he get this figure that this needs to make $200 million? Now look, it's a safe number because how many people can make $200 million and still go bankrupt? Not many. All right. You have to be a very special kind of poor economics to make $200 million and still go broke. But I don't know. Are they spending that much? Let's look at some of their expenses. And I don't know what the expenses are, like how much the expenses are. But you have 2 live wrestling broadcasts, which are very expensive. You have to run that ROH club, what's it called? Honor Club. You have to run that thing. That's very expensive. You have, production teams. You have talent. They're paying for talent to travel, so that's another issue. They're paying for their own marketing, their own promotions, and I'm just assuming they're paying for all this stuff, and Warner Brothers isn't picking up some of the costs. And since I believe Warner Brothers probably owns some stake in AEW, we know they get a piece of AEW pay-per-view because of Bleacher Report. Bleacher Report is a Warner Brothers Discovery platform, and they take a certain percentage when you use their platform. So I think it might be somewhere between 8 to 15%, maybe even more than that. So whatever they get through Bleacher Report, they probably cough some of that up to Warner Brothers. But it's hard to just say like they could be making $200 million a year in order to be profitable. It's like, that's kind of crazy. Where we get that number from? Like, what are their liabilities? If they needed to make $200 million to be profitable, that means they're broke not only right now, but they've been broke for a long time. They've always been broke. And they're always going to be permanently broke until they get to that point. And expenses are only going to go up. Talent's going to cost them more money as guys' contracts come, not just MJF, but other people too, the Ricky Starks of the world and different guys like that. And as more free agents hit the market from various companies, whether it be from NWA or WWE or MLW or whatever, those guys are going to want sizable money. Guys like Will Ospreay are going to want some sizable money. So yeah, you have a lot of liabilities coming up and costs that are going to increase, but I would need to know what their revenues are, and I have no idea what those are. How much do they make in t-shirts? Like how much do they, they're running half empty buildings, so we know they're not doing that great when it comes to tickets, but they still are selling tickets. The video game bombed, but I'm pretty sure they made something off of that thing. But I'm pretty sure they didn't make as much as they could have, because there's a difference in, hey, I want to make a video game. How much do I have to pay you to make the video game versus, oh, you want to use my characters, my name, images, and likenesses to make a video game? Okay. It's a difference. That's you shelling out more money versus them giving you money, and this 100% was AEW going to them saying, here's more money, make the game. We want you to make the game versus them coming to us wanting to make the game. So that's probably what drove the cost of the game up, being honest. WWE, NBA, NFL, UFC, I'm pretty sure they don't have that problem. They have strong brands. I'm pretty sure people came to them, wanted to license the name, image, likenesses, logos, etc., and get some people paid off that thing. Which I'm pretty sure some people got paid off the game anyway, but I'm pretty sure Tony Khan had to fork up a lot of the money to get the game made, which we know he did. WWE doesn't probably pay that much at all in getting their games made, because typically the companies want to make a WWE video game because it'll make money. Difference, it's the difference. So I don't see how he can safely say they need to make $200 million in media rights fees in order to be profitable. It seems like a large amount of money. I would imagine they could be profitable with $100 million. I know that's how much they started with, but they've grown since then. They haven't grown a lot. Their TV ratings or whatever have not done astronomical numbers, but they've had a string of sellouts in terms of, pay-per-views and television, etc. They've sold tons of merchandise. I know that some of that money went to the talent. I know some of that money, went into reinvesting into the company in some major ways. I think they got a new set. They got some new stuff going on. But I wouldn't imagine they need $200 million to be profitable. That just seems very safe to me. But the very idea that they're not profitable right now, it's like that's been floating around for a long time, that, AEW does not turn a profit. I've been saying that for a while. I've also been saying that they probably have some ownership given to Warner Brothers Discovery, in which Warner Brothers Discovery is basically a silent partner to AEW, and they basically just funnel money into it. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. Now, $200 million is a substantial investment into AEW. I would imagine for that kind of money, they would want an ownership stake, and a sizable one at that. So I know Tony Khan has kind of talked about this in the post-Wrestle Dream media scrum about how he's open to that. Well, he better be open to it, because if I'm Warner Brothers, the only way I'm keeping these shows on my network is if I own them. I'm not going to hold you up, because it's only going to get more expensive. If you have to spend $200 million in order to keep AEW, or whatever, $150 million or whatever in order to keep AEW, it's only going to get more expensive. So you might as well just buy into it now. Might as well get on the ground floor while they need you and buy into the company now. That being said, though, they're still waiting for the NBA. Nobody knows what the NBA is going to do. So their media rights fees and all that kind of stuff is probably in limbo for the next several months. I think they said April at the earliest or the latest, depending on whether NBA makes their deal before April or not, before their deals expire. But the idea that AEW needs to make $200 million to be profitable, I don't know. That seems very exact in terms of numbers. Then again, he might have more information than I have. I really would like to see where he got that from. But AEW is not profitable? I could have told you that. I could have told you that. You just look at how much money they're shelling out. Even when CM Punk was around, spending money on licensed music. Come on. That's crazy. And Tony Khan would come out and talk about how much he spends on licensed music, and how, licensing this song was as much as a wrestler's contract. And you'd be like, what on earth are you doing? Is it really worth it? Is it really worth it to license Pantera for Rob Van Dam? The guy makes like 2 or 3 appearances. Like, when WWE decided they were going to license Living Color for CM Punk, he was going to be on TV every single week. He's their world champion. He was going to be their top guy. They invested tons of money in this guy. Okay, you want to invest in the elite, so you want to do the licensed music thing? Okay, I wouldn't do it, but okay. But for a guy who only shows up every once in a while, there's no point. No, that's stupid. Just for the ambiance? Nah, come on. I know Tony Khan spends a ton of money. I know he's reckless with his cash. But, and that would make me believe that he probably is running at a loss. But $200 million seems like a lot. It seems like a lot to need in order to run your company, because that would mean that your expenses are greater than $200 million at the least. And I'm trying to figure out where all that is. Where's $200 million in expenses in AEW? That's what I'm trying to figure out. But maybe that's just in talent, and they don't spend a lot of money on marketing and promotions. Not as much as they used to. They spend a lot more on marketing than they do now. So I don't know, but it's an interesting talking point at the very least. Let's get into Dynamite. MJF is once again talking to Adam Cole through video screen. I don't know what's going on. He says Adam Cole wants him to take up Samoa Joe's offer. MJF refuses. Absolutely refuses. Then Daniel Garcia shows up. MJF says that he is the guy who coined the phrase talent over tenure, but wanted to know if he was getting a sports entertainer or a pro wrestler. And he accepted this match because he believes in Daniel Garcia, that Daniel Garcia could possibly be the future. Daniel Garcia says that he is a pro wrestler. Then Roderick Strong interrupted. Wanted to give MJF some tips because Roderick Strong himself is a wrestling legend. MJF says that he used to be a wrestling legend, but now he's a joke. And then he tried to talk to Adam Cole. Adam hung up on him. So Roderick Strong says that he's going to have to remind everybody who he is. Well, the opening segment, I don't know. It seems okay. I'm wondering why Adam Cole is trying to push Samoa Joe onto MJF. I'm really interested in, because like once you did it once, you could say maybe he's just trying to help him. But then after a while, you get the idea that he really wants MJF to work with Samoa Joe. And I wonder why that is. Anyway, Daniel Garcia, they still doing this pro wrestler versus sports entertainer crap. Makes no sense. We should have answered this question already. So in match 1, they actually opened the show with MJF versus Daniel Garcia for the AEW World title, which lets you know 2 things. 1, Daniel Garcia ain't going to win. And 2, whatever the main event was, it probably wasn't going to be able to top this. Daniel Garcia and MJF had a decent match. Now, this match exists because Meltzer spent, I don't know, almost 3 weeks now talking about how old the roster is in AEW. So out of nowhere, Daniel Garcia gets a championship match because Daddy Meltzer started talking about how old the roster is and how everybody in the title picture is old and everybody on the show is old. And that's all they kept talking about during this entire match. Both of these guys are under the age of 30. And look, I get it. I may have even mentioned how old some of these guys are. But like MJF said, talent over tenure. Daniel Garcia just doesn't have the talent. He's just not that good. He's not that interesting. I know he's a technical marvel or whatever, but the most over thing about him is his goofy dance. And he's still doing the goofy dance, even though he says that he's a pro wrestler. And he's trying to go back to being Das Dragon Slayer. He's, still doing that goofy dance. Now, that being said, on the matter, this exists just to appease Meltzer. I do like the finish. The finish, Daniel Garcia puts MJF in the sharpshooter. Now, his version of the sharpshooter, he leans back pretty far. So as he's leaning back in the sharpshooter, he actually starts mocking and doing his little dance. But in doing it, he puts his arm out. MJF then grabs his arm and uses it into the Salt of the Earth armbar to win the match. So MJF wins by submission, clean. Good idea, good finish. And then afterwards, MJF offers Daniel Garcia his hand. He wants him to shake his hand. Daniel Garcia is going to do it at first. And then he's stopped by 2.0. MJF yells at him that he needs to break away from them. He needs to stop following them. But he continues to leave without shaking MJF's hand. All right, solid enough match. Actually, not a bad opener. This probably would have been shitty as a main event, if we're being honest. But as an opener, it wasn't too bad. The next segment was a vignette between Jay White and Mark Briscoe, where Mark Briscoe was talking about he knew Jay White when Jay White was a young boy before he could even grow a beard. And now look at him. And basically wanted him to put his title shot on the line so that he could beat him up. And this, for some odd reason, is the main event of the evening. Now, I don't understand why this was the main event. I just don't get why Jay White versus Mark Briscoe was the main event. Maybe somebody else can explain it to me in a language I can understand, but I didn't get why this match was the main event. Jay White wins, obviously. And since his title shot was on the line, he was obviously going to win. After the match, MJF ends up punching out 3 of the 4 members of the Bullet Club Gold with his Dynamite Diamond Ring. He didn't knock any of them out. He just punched them in the face. Jay White, he fled from them. MJF got on the microphone and says that he hopes that Jay White had fun playing dress up because it's about to come to an end. Then he says that he wanted to be the greatest world champion of all time and that Jay White's going to have to kill him to beat him. Because now he's not just fighting for himself, he's fighting for everybody who came on this journey with him. He is their scumbag. And then the lights went out, because the lights gotta go out. Always. When the lights come on, the Acclaimed are getting beat up by masked guys. And then Anthony Bowens is launched through a window. Is it real glass? Cry me a river. But was it real glass? I don't know. I don't know if it was real glass or not. I didn't see any blood. I didn't see any cuts, so it probably wasn't. I think the visual was cool enough as it is. All right, so then we get the devil on screen as we go off the air. MJF runs backstage to check on his good buddies now, the Acclaimed, only to find them beat to shreds. Samoa Joe comes over to him, laughs haughtily, and turns around. You know, saying basically like, look, everybody that you were friends with is going down. So now MJF's friends are being attacked. I'm okay with it. I think this was a very decent angle at the end. I wouldn't say it was great. It was good. You needed something to take this thing further. And now it seems like the devil has this personal vendetta against MJF. Now, I wish they'd have started attacking MJF's friends from the beginning, rather than attacking Jay White first, who had nothing to do with MJF, and then attacking other, basically just popping up, randomly at other times. But Jay White versus Mark Briscoe as a match, it was fine, I guess. I don't care about matches, really. I ain't gonna hold you up. The match was a match. It was what it was. Mark Briscoe is a good performer, so is Jay White. They didn't have a bad match. They just had a wrestling match. And I didn't have any emotional investment in it at all. They really destroyed any emotional investment that one may have had in Mark Briscoe. They did a really good job of that. Kudos to Tony Khan. The second match on the show, Darby Allin and Sting defeat the Outrunners. Okay. It just happened, and then it was over. And then it went nowhere, and it built to nothing. It's just part of Sting's goodbye tour. All right, so now these guys can go on Twitter and go on Facebook and put on their Indeed accounts how they got to wrestle Sting in one of his last matches in wrestling. Great job. Turbo Floyd. He had a great match with Sting. I think it was the other day, right, that I was talking about, like, Swerve was talking about on Twitter, like, I got to wrestle Sting. And I was like, there was a bunch of job guys that got to wrestle Sting. And now look. Sting didn't take one single bump in this match, which of course he shouldn't have. Why bump for the Outrunners? What the hell? But whatever. Darby Allin's still alive. Sting's still alive. They just wanted to put Sting in front of the crowd. All right. They did a promo segment backstage with Tony Schiavone, Toni Storm, and Hikaru Shida. Shida wanted to know what happened to Toni Storm. Why is she acting like this? Toni Storm says, well, you happened, and claimed that Hikaru Shida stole her thunder at Wembley when she was supposed to win the women's title. And then she says, well, I figure if I can't win the title at Wembley, I'll just be the first ever 3-time women's champion. Only for Shida to steal that too. So she has started stealing Shida's thunder because Shida stole her thunder. And says that since you are making history, I became history. Shida then says, at Full Gear, what will happen between the two of them is what always will happen. She's going to beat Toni Storm. Toni Storm then went into her chin up, tits out, watch for the shoe. She's going to hit Hikaru Shida with a shoe, but then Shida slapped it out of her hand. And that was the end of that. Now, in terms of a storyline, I don't hate it, but it's not strong. All right. It's something, but it's not very strong. Now, Hikaru Shida is the reason why Toni Storm went crazy. So at least we have that under our belt when it comes to this match. That Toni Storm has this, this splinter in her paw. And this splinter is Hikaru Shida. She's always there getting in the way, causing disruption to Tony's plans. So I'm okay with this as it is. That's why I say it's fine. But it could certainly be better, I think. But at least it's not nothing. The third match on the show, Swerve Strickland versus Pentagon Jr., a.k.a. government name, Penta El Zero Miedo, in which they did a lot of moves, which includes a Canadian Destroyer on a ring apron. This match is happening because Pentagon was upset that Swerve Strickland invaded Hangman Page's house. Yeah. Why would he care about that? Anyway, move on. Moving on, dog. Moving on. Just keep moving. This match was very long, too, by the way. This match felt like it was going on forever. The finish came when Swerve did an arm breaker, which is basically like the arm stomp onto Pentagon, but it took him forever to do it. Like, for some reason, he couldn't line his foot up with Pentagon's arm. It literally took him way too long to do it. So he did the arm breaker and the double stomp to win the match. After the match, Hangman Page chased Swerve Strickland with a chair, hit him with it, beat his ass, and then dropped him with a dead eye off the ramp through a table. And seems very extreme. Seems kind of extreme to do. But he did invade his house. Maybe I should back off of that. He invaded that man's house, so okay, he can drop him through a table. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Jay Whitehall cut a promo on MJF, mocked MJF for wanting to compare graphs on a chart, and said that the lines are the way they are because MJF searches his own name. I wouldn't even bother to mention that if I were him. I'd have just moved on. I'd have just moved on, bro. It's like it's goofy. Don Callis, they did a vignette in which was intermixed with video game footage about how the Don Callis family is not about order, only chaos, and that they want unquestioned loyalty, and they will engage in violence, and this isn't a video game, this has real consequences. I don't know when this match is supposed to be happening. Like, I thought this match was happening at Full Gear, but apparently it's not. When is this match supposed to be happening? And what video game was that? I didn't look it up because I don't care. I'm not a gamer. But I'm looking at things saying, it's a video game. It's kind of distracting. I don't know what they got to do with the story. Does it fit the story at the least? I heard that Sega was going to be a sponsor. But apparently, I think it's going to be this video game here. The game must be made by Sega, right? All right. That's fine. They're going to have something to do with this thing. Okay. Well, if somebody's paying for it, I can't complain too much. Jericho and Omega had a backstage segment that seemed to be going swimmingly until the Young Bucks showed up. The Young Bucks interrupted, said that they hadn't gotten their own locker, or they said they changed in the closet or the janitor's closet or something like that because Jericho and Omega got their locker room all sewed up. Then they mocked them for being a tag team and naming themselves the Golden Jets, saying that how about they do go back to being a little thing called the Elite, the guys who built this company. Jericho says, well, I was there too. And then the Young Bucks says, well, you do what you always did. You came in at the end and collected a big fat check. So Jericho is like, look, I don't have time to be playing with these kids, but thinks that him and Kenny Omega can beat the Young Bucks because even though they're one of the biggest tag teams of all time, he feel like they can beat them. Omega was just kind of like, oh my God, what is going on here? So the Young Bucks challenged them to a match and said that when they beat them, they want the Golden Jets, as they call themselves, to break up. And Jericho says, well, when we win, we want that guaranteed title shot you guys have been sitting on. And so everybody's agreed. that the Young Bucks will get the breakup of the Golden Jets. So they'll stop Kenny Omega from being friends with Chris Jericho. And if Jericho wins, then the Young Bucks will have to cough up that guaranteed title shot that they got. So Kenny Omega cut a promo saying, if you want to talk about who the best tag team is, it's you two guys. You're the greatest tag team of all time. I know I've wrestled you guys before. Then he said he doesn't want to fight the Young Bucks, but he's did it. He's beat them before. He beat them on Hangman Page, if I remember correctly. But he says that maybe after they lose this match, they'll start acting like real men instead of sissified, whiny bitches or something like that. Whiny, bitchy sissies or something to that effect. Whatever it was. If you had to make Omega sound like he was super tough. And, okay, look. You want to add stakes to a match on the show? Fine. Do that. I'm not invested in the Golden Jets and them breaking up. I don't care about that. I expect them to break up soon anyway. So I don't care about that. I don't care about the Young Bucks having a title shot they didn't cash in yet. Don't care about that either. What I do care about is the performance level here. And the Young Bucks are piss poor at what they're doing. I don't feel like they believe anything that they've said. They're just saying shit, you know? We're the elite. And we had to dress in the janitor's locker. I'm like, what? Why? You didn't have to do that. You did it because you wanted to. You did it because you in your feelings because your friend has another friend. This is stupid. These guys are awful. You know, this is real bad stuff, bro. And nobody cares about this. I just keep trying to figure out when is this Don Callis thing supposed to happen, because I thought it was at the pay-per-view, but apparently this match is at the pay-per-view. Is this match that important? You know, I don't think so. And the Golden Jets, they won like one match, maybe two. What? Golden Jets. If you don't get your ass. And Kenny Omega calling somebody a sissy is hilarious. He was literally the sissy slap fight guy. Literally. Google it. He was literally the sissy slap fight guy. And he calls somebody else a sissy. He's a gassed up sissy. Hilarious. The fourth match on the show is not for sissies. Samoa Joe versus Keith Lee. I like this. This was great. You know, the Mongolian chop by Keith Lee across the chest of Samoa Joe with all the mist that came off that joint. It was great. I watched this match from beginning to end. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It was great. Samoa Joe wins with the coquina clutch. Keith Lee couldn't answer the referee, so they stopped the match. Interesting finish. You know, better than Keith Lee getting pinned, but it was okay. I'm not gonna hate it. Anyway, good match. Had fun with it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Samoa Joe, after the match, says that he's the greatest Ring of Honor television champion of all time. He's also the longest reigning television champion of all time. And he says he didn't come here to just be the TV champion. And he says that he said before that he was getting hungry. But now you could consider him hungry. And he wants to vacate the Ring of Honor television title because he's choosing to pursue the AEW World Championship. I don't know. It's clear that, you know, Tony Khan booked himself into the corner by putting the belt on Samoa Joe, and then seeing the CM Punk thing happen, and now he kind of needs somebody to fill in that slot. So he's decided that Samoa Joe is going to fill in that spot. And he can't have Joe lose to any of these undercard guys that he's got on Ring of Honor. So the only way to get the belt off Joe is to have Joe voluntarily give it up. That way, Joe doesn't have to lose to anybody. He maintains his credibility. And you can get that belt back into Ring of Honor and back on some undercard guy without Joe having to lose. That's the only thing I can think of why they would do this. And it makes sense. It's perfectly fine. Samoa Joe challenged for I think he challenged for the real world championship while he was a TV champion. He's also challenged for the AEW world title while he was a TV champion. Like, he didn't need to vacate this title. He could be a double champion. But I think that if they try to massage this story by saying that he wants to focus solely on being the world champion, and by not having his focus split between being TV champion and world champion, he has a better chance of being the world champion. That's fine. So I didn't hate this, and it seemed like a fitting end for Samoa Joe. He beat, one of the most dangerous guys in the company. At least it should have been. I know he hasn't been booked that way, but Keith Lee was a legitimate challenger for the most part, in name only, via reputation, not because of anything in creative, not because of the story or whatever, but because you could realistically see Keith Lee winning this match. And Samoa Joe going out on top, because what next? You're going to have him lose the belt to like Eli Isom or something like that? Like, there's nothing you can do with this guy, with this belt at this point. So, while I don't think it was a great idea, I think it's a passable idea, considering that he might actually be in the running to be a legitimate world champion. I'm okay with Samoa Joe coughing up this title if he wins the world championship, which we don't know yet. All right. Next, Orange Cassidy cut a promo, said that Moxley has lost his mind, that Moxley has said that Orange Cassidy doesn't respect him, that he stepped over him, that he looked past him or whatever. And he says that Moxley has been on his mind since he left him laying in his own blood in Chicago. And he needs to beat Moxley to feel like the champion that he really is. Okay, this was an attempt by Orange Cassidy to cut a serious babyface promo. And I think he whiffed on it. Moxley cut a promo, said this ain't about no belts, dog. This is about my territory. You stepped on my territory. You took my match. He said that, he wants to set a good example for Wheeler Yuta, so he's got to beat the piss out of Orange Cassidy. Then he says that Orange Cassidy doesn't deserve to make it to Full Gear. He wants gang warfare the moment they step off the airplanes, and he wants Hook to take notes, if he still has working fingers. And then Wheeler Yuta talked, but we don't talk about Wheeler Yuta talking around here, okay? I don't care about this. Like, I know AEW wants me to care, but I don't care about this. I literally don't give a shit. Moxley's cutting really odd promos, but I like them because I like the swag and the energy of them. But you actually look at the content, I don't know. He seems like he's trying to be a good mentor to Yuta and expecting Orange Cassidy to be a good mentor to Hook. And to set a good example is you got to beat up a guy who he takes something from you. But he's like, Orange Cassidy took his match that he wasn't medically cleared for. And that's not Orange Cassidy's fault. But then again, if he's the heel in this scenario, he doesn't have to be logical. Heels can be completely, totally illogical. In fact, it actually helps if they are. So, Moxley is, he should be killing Phoenix, shouldn't he? But I guess Phoenix hurt. I don't know. Let's move on. The Guns defeated the Bollywood Boys. Hey, it's the Singh Boys. I remember they used to get put through tables a lot. After the match, the Guns said that MJF is a liar. He's not a generational talent. And they're tired of hearing all his sob stories. He said that they were made for TV. They're the former tag team champions. They're real generational talents. And MJF is watching this on the screen. He looks a little concerned. And then Samoa Joe stood beside him. And MJF just walked off. So they're really teasing this Samoa Joe MJF thing. And Samoa Joe's like a hunter, where he's going to follow MJF to the ends of the earth. To get what he wants, there's no lengths that he won't go to. So I'm interested. MJF hasn't, literally said no. Well, he did say no to Samoa Joe. But every week he's being tempted more and more. Which means that maybe, just maybe, this devil, if he don't take out Samoa Joe, might be working in conjunction with Samoa Joe. Could be interesting. Anyway, Wardlow had a vignette talking about how terrible his first 3 years in AEW was because MJF was making him feel worthless. And then he starts talking about how the days of the devil are coming to an end. And he had a sledgehammer and he was knocking down stuff. And okay, look, they're trying to put a little bit of focus on all the MJF storylines that they got going on at once. And I appreciate that they're putting so much effort in, but I'm not certain that Wardlow's time couldn't be better spent doing something else. You know, like either he should be the main focus of MJF. Like what's the wait for? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like MJF is feuding with all these different people, and Samoa Joe's trying to get MJF to be his partner and take this deal. Why? Why not just kick his ass? Wardlow was tormented by MJF, and now he wants to knock down walls or build walls. I don't know what he was doing with that sledgehammer. Like, why not? Just want to kick his ass. The Gun Boys they challenge him to a match, they're going to get their match. Jay White challenged them to a match, they're going to get their match. Why can't these other guys just beat up MJF? What are we waiting for? So that's what I'm saying. Like, we're probably better off doing something else. And maybe, just maybe, Wardlow should have been the devil. How about that? Wouldn't that have been more interesting if Wardlow had been off TV all that time and he was, stalking MJF, has stolen MJF stuff, and then at the pay-per-view maybe they would have had his big return would have been Wardlow under the devil mask, and then he powerbombed MJF and teased going for the title. I think that would have really popped the crowd. That would have popped everybody. But now Wardlow is in the fourth most important storyline MJF is involved in. And that's not going to make you interesting in the long run. You're just a guy waiting for his turn. You're waiting for his shot. And you're not building up anything to get there. That's why I say I think his time would be better used doing something else. Feuding with somebody else that he could powerbomb and destroy. And then meeting MJF when the time is right. Or either come in and go right immediately after MJF, which is what the preferred option would have been. Or B, you come in, you regain your reputation, and then you eventually stand in front of MJF and as the undisputed, uncontested number one contender, the Clubber Lang in this story. But they chose not to do that. Now he's holding this grudge against MJF, which is fine, and it makes sense for his character and his story, but I don't understand why he's waiting. I don't understand why he's not the guy who's trying to rip the arms off MJF, why he's waiting to see if Jay White's going to win the title or Samoa Joe's going to win the title. Why wait? I don't get it. So that's just one thing I'm not understanding. Julia Hart defeated Red Velvet. The match wasn't good. The match wasn't terrible. It was just there, I guess. But then again, I didn't watch most of it, if we're being honest. After the match, Julia Hart continued to beat up Red Velvet. Sky Blue then made the save, and then her and Julia had a long stare down in which neither one of them said anything, except for they look at each other with stank faces. At least they tried to give stank faces. And it looked like they both was about to smile or something. And then Willow Nightingale and Chris Statlander came down there. They didn't do anything. Willow is just perennial good girl. She came down there to help Red Velvet to the back, while Chris Statlander, I guess, was trying to hold back Sky Blue, who wasn't doing anything. And then Julia Hart just left. So we got nothing out of this. Nothing. Okay. They're still focusing on the TBS title. This is fine. I mean, they're doing a little bit more with the girls than I would have imagined, but nice having Red Velvet back. It's been a while. She's an AEW staple. I'm not going to be mad that Red Velvet is there. She's an OG. You start looking. If you want to keep track of your past, you keep track of your OGs. All right, so Mariah May, this young blonde wrestler that they've been talking about for at least the last 3 months, since Wembley at the very least. Well, since before Wembley. They thought she was going to make her debut at Wembley. She finally made her entrance on this roster, and it was in a backstage segment with RJ City. So they decided that Mariah May is a big fan of RJ City and Toni Storm. As a matter of fact, she's a huge fan of Toni Storm. She says that she went to Japan because Toni went to Japan. And now Toni is in AEW, so she is in AEW. So RJ City wants to take her to visit Toni, and she's incredibly excited. So Mariah May, who nobody knows right now, at least nobody outside of, the hardcores, she's basically going to be the Mickie James to Toni Storm's Trish Stratus. And some people are okay with that. Some people aren't. I'm kind of on the fence. Or it's a storyline that's fine. If she's going to be a stalker or a super fan of Toni Storm, that's fine. But I would prefer if she did her own thing. I don't know. But then again, I don't know where this is going. I don't have any faith that Tony Khan is going to be able to write a story that's going to be as interesting as Trish Stratus and Mickie James. I don't see that coming out of this whole scenario. I see this mostly as they're building an entourage for Toni, and this guy that she's got with her, this Luther, is one of those people. And now Mariah May is going to be one of her bump goons, where when she wins the title, she's going to be the gooner who's going to take all the bumps and everything. She's going to be her Reba. That's what I'm thinking it's going to be mostly. Instead of being her Mickie James, she's going to be her Reba. Reba, what Reba was for Britt Baker. Where is Britt Baker, by the way? Oh, I forgot. Adam Cole's ankles fell apart. She's got to stitch them together. She's a dentist. Oh, look, he might have teeth in his ankles. I don't know. I don't know nothing about that man's ankle. Look, I don't think that Mariah May had a great introduction here. But it's as good as any. At least she came in and she's immediately involved with a story. So we got, if you don't know who the character is, you don't know who she is, you don't need to know because you're being brought in immediately on a different track, something that she was not doing in Japan. So that's fine. Now, a lot of people are like, who is Mariah May? And I was, of course, one of those people too. And people keep giving me highlight films. You can't tell me shit about nobody from highlights. Highlights are, by definition, the best stuff that you did. That has nothing to do with like how your average performance is. Like she had a really great match with Julia. I'm like, I don't. Where's the match? You showed me the highlights of the match where they just slapping each other in the face. I don't care about this. What was the storyline going into the match? Can she cut a promo? What's happening here? Nothing. Just here's match. And I'm like, oh, brother. And not even a match, the highlights of the match. Oh, God, get the hell out of here. You dorks. You're not going to get me into anybody by showing me a highlight reel. I can tell you that now. I don't pay attention to highlight reels. I could probably make Baron Corbin look like he's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time if I put together a highlight reel. And you would forget that how his matches are super fucking boring. No, he's boring. He sucks. And she could suck too. I don't know. I retain the right to decide later. Because I'm not going to, pitch her whole career based off of one entrance and one segment. But she apparently is just going to be a part of Toni Storm's entourage. Which, could be a positive thing. But it's AEW. And we've seen with the baddies and with other entourages that they've put together, they don't exactly know what they're doing. They don't exactly do a good job of it. So I don't trust that Mariah May is going to get any kind of real development in this role. But the question is, like, how much younger is she to Toni Storm? Like, is she like 2 years younger, 18 months younger? Are they the same age? I don't know. But her being a Toni Storm super fan could be fun. Toni Storm is, popular enough at this point in AEW to have a super fan. So it's okay. So that's AEW. Keith Lee versus Samoa Joe. Tippy top, really good stuff. Didn't hate MJF and Daniel Garcia, even though I'm not a big fan of Daniel Garcia. The Golden Jets stuff was awful. The Young Bucks cannot talk. They're absolutely dreadful. I couldn't have given a fuck less about Swerve and Penta, and I'm a big fan of both of those guys, and I just didn't care. It's just a match for the sake of. Random Sting appearance. Thanks for that. So overall, a thumb in the middle kind of AEW show. But let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you guys later.